Welcome to the Boys and Girls Haven Happenings podcast, featuring conversations and stories designed to equip, mobilize, and encourage our community to support children and young adults in foster care. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Haven Happenings. Hey there, folks. Nick Brewer here. I am the Marketing and Design Manager at Boys and Girls Haven. I also edit the Haven Happenings podcast. Late last week, I had the opportunity to sit down with a couple of my coworkers.
All right, just tell me if I need to get closer or further away or talk louder.
The first was Josh Swetnam.
Hi, I'm Josh Swetnam.
He's a mental health professional.
I'm the director of the Haven Family Counseling Program here at Boys and Girls Haven.
He has more than 25 years of experience in foster care, both as a parent.
My wife, Jody, and I are the really lucky parents of two beautiful children, Azaria, who's age 7, Amani, who's 13. They both were children in the foster care system. We adopted them. Both have been with us since they were little.
And as a clinician.
Also working in child welfare for about 25 years now. Have had a lot of experience working with foster adoptive parents through Boys and Girls Haven and some other places where we've worked. So,
hello, I'm Ebony Dixon.
The second coworker was Ebony Dixon. She's also a mental health professional.
I'm the therapist here at Boys and Girls Haven.
Ebony's been at Boys and Girls Haven for more than 5 years.
I currently work with Salt River Trail region and also do intensive in-home.
This conversation between Josh and Ebony lasts about 30 minutes. It dives into the meaningfulness of hair and what it means for foster parents to be proactive about educating themselves on their child's culture. You can listen to more episodes or learn more about our foster care, adoption, and mental health services by visiting us online at boysandgirlshaven.org.
I feel like today's hair is such a big deal that they try to mimic all the celebrities and like their different hairstyles. So I also see it with girls getting like sew-ins from different races and different cultures.
mm-hmm.
And I know that it's just different because the hair is sometimes a lot finer or not as coarse where it's able to hold in that weave. And so it's a struggle, but the kids, that's what they want because that's what they see, so very interesting.
Right, because that's what the celebrities do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think celebrity and just, music and actors and basically anybody who's popular in the culture, that drives a lot of what the kids want to see, what the kids want to do with their hair.
Definitely.
And so I think that's kind of universal, whether a kid's in foster care or not, and I guess it's always been that way where kids want to be like their heroes, like the celebrities.
Yeah.
But that can get kind of interesting when we talk about, kind of a Eurocentric culture.
Yep.
And that's kind of been an issue throughout our country's history. If the supposed norm is kind of a white standard of beauty, then you can have children who are, African American or, from other racial backgrounds who want to aspire to kind of a white standard of beauty. I think that's something that we all have to kind of be aware of.
Yeah.
So have you ever worked with youth who maybe wanted something that was unrealistic or maybe even had some self-esteem issues?
Definitely.
Because
I have. And it's so funny. So I'm coming from a background of also just not only being an African-American female, but I worked in foster care for 3 years. And then I did I worked at the Brook in like a residential setting, a hospital setting for 3 years. And I would tell you, it was so mind-boggling that you would see so many kids, girls would try to change their hair. I would see it with girls who are biracial. They will literally try to fry their hair because they wanted their hair straight like their moms. And so just basically giving them the education piece around, hey, your hair may not look this type of way. But on the other hand, I remember those curls would be beautiful. So I would try to get them to embrace like, hey, your curls, you just need water. You just need to put a little bit of this in there and having your curls pop. But big hair was not cool for kids, right? So it's like that flat, that straight. And they literally were frying their hair. So yes, I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, there's a long history of hair straightening.
Yes.
In this country, and using a lot of chemicals, artificial things to try to get hair straightened.
Yeah.
So done a lot of a lot of kids damage their hair that way.
Yes, their hair, I promise you, was so damaged, very broke off, very kind of really brittle, and it was really hard for them to not process or understand why their hair couldn't get the way
Hmm.
that their mom's hair was, or vice versa, you know. So I think it was just so hard for them girls to understand that.
Yeah. So it seems like, a big piece of it is not being able to fully appreciate or love who you are. That, if you have if your hair is naturally curly, being able to embrace that,
Yeah.
and love your hair. There's actually a book, and then it was actually an animated short, and it became a book called Hair Love. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you've seen this. I think it won like the Oscar for best animated short, but it was about a father trying to help his African American daughter, do her hair as they went to
Yeah.
see their mom in the hospital. But I've seen a lot more in the culture, kind of geared towards helping young women and young men appreciate their hair
Yes.
and be who they are. Kind
Yeah.
of natural hair. I feel like natural hair has become kind of more popular, more accepted. What do you think?
Oh, I promise you 100% a more acceptance. I even think about just me personally. In 2006, when kind of went to college, natural hair was just not just what it was, right?
Right.
So we wore our hair in like weaves and styles and those type of things. But if you wore your hair natural, it was like, oh, what's going on with you? What's
Mm.
wrong?
Yeah.
And I hate to say it that way, but I do think today's society embraces that so much more. I know with me in my hair journey, I've actually now been natural for the last 5 years, and it is a process. But I've gained so much knowledge around it, and so much more. Just my hair is so much healthier, and I never knew that.
Yeah.
And so I'm an adult who's able to say that. So I just couldn't imagine a kid nowadays. So now I kind of use my experience and when working in this population, helping out our families. Because the first thing I feel like the families just has to be aware of is just realizing that there is a difference.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes that's kind of hard to accept at first because it's like, there's no difference, right? I used to work with foster families who would say to me, oh, no, it's not a big deal. And I was like, oh, no, but it is, you know? And you will see with young women, when their hair is different, their self esteem is different,
Hmm.
they act different. Um, Even me. I can honestly say that when my hair is done, I promise you, I can be a whole different person. And it's just now just embracing that and realizing that, and it's realizing that it's not a bad thing. Because I think in the past that we probably used to think that's so shallow, that's so and it's not.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Well, and I'm thinking about even some youth that you and I both know, youth that you've worked with, where getting your hair done is symbolic of so much more.
Hmm.
That I'm accepted within this family, that somebody cares enough to take care of my hair, that take the time to treat me like everybody else in the family. So if, and thinking about kids in foster care, um, that can say a lot if, say, the biological members of the family get their hair done, but then the foster child doesn't.
Oh yeah,
you know
yeah,
it says a lot about your place in the family.
it does.
And on the opposite side, if you're treated like everybody else and you get all the same time, attention, money put into your hair care, that says a lot about where you stand. I
Yeah.
mean, what do you think?
No, I definitely think that you definitely hit on something. And one thing I will say is also just realizing that it does take a lot of time. It does take a lot of patience and a lot of money sometimes to care for your hair properly. And yeah, caregivers, parents, they do need to be aware of that. And when they do show that to a kid, it's so much more than just getting your hair done, right? It's showing me that, hey, you are also wanting me to be just like you, or accepted, or part of the family. And so I think that that is just so crucial to understand and to know.
So I've been around in this field for a while, and I remember when I first got into social work, as a career, my perspective was pretty narrow.
Hmm.
I didn't know what I didn't know, but when I started working in foster care, many many years ago, I remember one family that I worked with. It kind of opened my eyes because um, a foster mother wanted to call CPS, Child Protective Services,
Hmm.
on another foster parent for not taking care of a child's hair. I mean, this
Yeah.
child, that her hair was falling out. It hadn't been combed and taken care of, And, just having those conversations, it really opened my eyes to just how important it is, particularly for African American children, to have your hair taken care of so that it's healthy, and and also that you can have, higher self-esteem. So just this foster parent saying, I'm going to call CPS on that mother. It told me just how serious and how important it was. And that kind of opened my eyes, and I could, learn more and more, but that experience really stands out to me.
Yeah. And I would tell you it just goes with overall health and well-being nowadays, right? Yeah. It's like when we think about like self-care, that's one thing that's super important. And so I see why she was so upset, so kudos to her. Did we need to maybe contact CPS? I'm not sure, but I will say it definitely should have been a conversation.
Yeah,
and so,
absolutely.
I think that actually was really brave of her to do that.
Yeah. And it, I think it speaks to either nurturing or neglect.
Yeah.
And it's symbolic of something deeper. And you can say that about a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Our and here at Boys and Girls Haven, since we do work with children in foster care, thinking about are we taking care of all of these children's needs? Are we really? And again, are we treating them as family?
Yeah.
Because to me, that's a lot of what it boils down to. Will we treat these children like they're our own?
Yep.
Even if we're fostering and haven't adopted and they're not our biological kids, are we going to take care of them?
Yeah.
And I think when you're a foster or adoptive parent, that's a big piece.
Yeah.
Is to think about how do you treat them as your own, but also how do you educate yourself to make sure that you're meeting their needs?
Yes.
So I'm an adoptive parent of 2 African American children.
Okay.
They're 7 and 13, but they've both been with me and my wife since they were babies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you that as a white person, I had no idea how complex and how how multi-layered it is to take care of African American hair. I grew up in kind of a rural setting, all white family, and I had no concept.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been an education for me and my wife.
Yeah.
Just the number of products, the expense, the work that goes into taking care of hair. And it's been a journey for us, and we've made a lot of mistakes along the way.
And you know what I think is so important to highlight what you just said, that it has been a journey. And I don't know if you probably realize it, but your kids will probably in the future really appreciate that. They might not understand now just because they're kids, but appreciate just the process of you guys just trying to do that. So I would say, I think back in like when you were taking your like classes, is that something that they highlight in there, or is that something that you feel like that's where we need to kind of start our go?
Not nearly enough.
Okay.
So we, with my daughter, we were foster parents for DCBS, Kentucky's Child Welfare System. So we were actually partnered up with the entity that we work with day in and day out.
Yeah.
Like so many other foster parents. And I would say the training was good. There was a lot we got out of it, even for 2 people who've worked in social services, but they didn't cover the issues of transracial fostering and adoption enough, and they didn't touch on hair enough.
Yeah.
They mentioned it, but I think there's a need, especially in transracial foster homes, to provide more support and education.
Yeah.
And a part of that, and again, I'm kind of drawn from my own experience, is helping get past maybe the nervousness or apprehension about reaching out across the racial lines. I remember, I'll never forget the first time I took my son to a black barbershop.
Mm-hmm.
We went to like the little kid sports clips or whatever when he was a baby. It's, where all babies get their haircut. But when he was old enough to really need a good fade, a good hairstyle, we started going to black barbershops. And I remember it wasn't just my experience walking in and being the only white person, but also for him. Yeah, you could tell it was an interesting experience for him too. Yeah, because he could, feel the contrast of being with me, but also being in a barbershop full of people that look like him. And it was a wonderful experience. And we went back time and time again, and we kind of became regulars, and we all knew each other by first name. And it was a great experience. But just getting in the door was the most important part, because, you have to, I think if you're if you're like a white foster adoptive parent caring for African American children, you have to have the courage to kind of walk across that threshold. You have to push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone, And I know my wife had a similar experience going into salons with our daughter, because at some point she just didn't have the skills or knowledge to really give her the hairstyles that would, make her look her best.
Yes.
Braids and twists and beads, and so she had to go and get help. But if you don't reach out, then you're not going to be able to take care of your child as much as to the best of your ability. So that's one thing I would say to white foster parents, maybe fostering children of a different race, is, reach out, get support, talk to somebody who knows, step outside of your comfort zone, because I think that's only going to benefit your child.
Definitely. And what I think about that, which is huge, is stepping outside of your comfort zone. Me just being an African-American female, I have to do that a lot in life.
Absolutely.
And I think about it sometimes, it's now I don't want to say tables are turning, but I think it's coming to realization that, Caucasians, you guys are also stepping outside the comfort zone. And Josh, I think it's just incredible that you are able to just highlight that and recognize that. And, there's good people in all, culture and communities and those type of things. And I'm glad you had a great experience in the salon, because I will tell you, the salon is such a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think about it, there's movies nowadays, barbershop and their salons. It's such a family atmosphere that after a while, I promise you'll be in these, in each other's life for years on out in times. I still remember going to the salon when I was 16, and I still am connected with that hairstylist, to this day. So it's such a big deal.
And does that also kind of speak to how hair is not just hair?
Yeah.
In the African American community, it's also part of culture.
It is.
And relationships.
Yep. A positive relationship building. I promise you, during the salon, you'll go in there. I don't care what mood you're in. We have great conversations. You might have like dinner in there. Snacks is also in there. So I think it's just a good time of just coming in. And then you also, when you are building these rapport and different conversation with people, you can like ask questions that you probably wouldn't ask in a normal setting, right? And so I really love it. It's kind of like a safe setting, a safe spot for people. So I really enjoyed that about the salons.
But, LeBron James has like a production company, does movies and TV shows, but one of them I think is called The Shop. And it really does kind of celebrate that barbershop culture.
Yeah.
Which, as I understand it, and again, it's just as I've learned over the past, 13, 14 years, the barbershop, again, it's not just about getting a good haircut. It's a place, it's a safe space.
It is.
It's a safe space to learn, to ask those questions, like you said.
Yeah.
To be among people who kind of get the experience. And so, again, I think as foster adoptive parents, we have to be aware of all it's kind of multidimensional, what's culturally important, and how do we embrace those elements so that children feel supported.
Yeah. And I think just kind of going back what you're saying, I think during this time, just letting foster parents know that there is so much education piece out there. I know the internet right now, we know it can be a little, little biased at times, but I will say that's your first go-to sometimes. Going on the internet, YouTube have great videos of how to do your hair, how to properly, get your hair growing, being healthy, how to treat different types of hair. I want to highlight that too. Just because you have a kid of a certain race doesn't mean that their hair is all one texture. There's so many different textures
Absolutely.
out there. So learning the different texture of your kid's hair, individualizing it. And just literally, we call it like tender love and care.
Mm-hmm.
Giving that hair tender love and care is just like plants. It's just like, us as humans, we need that to grow. We need that to flourish. And I just think that is really awesome.
It reminds me of something that I also think we have to be aware of or think about when we're working with children in foster care or children who have been adopted is, to kind of push back against this notion that there is no difference.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll hear people say something like, I don't see color.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
It's a nice goal, but the truth is to be culturally competent and culturally humble, we really do need to see and embrace those differences and appreciate them. So I think a mistake that I've seen some foster parents make is to kind of take that approach of we're all the same and it's no different.
Yeah.
But a lot of children don't feel like they're being heard or seen with that approach. So I would really advocate for taking a different approach, embrace the differences, and then educate yourself.
Yeah.
Get the experience so that your children can be even more supported. And again, like in what we're talking about, that includes like go to the barbershop, go to the salon, talk to somebody who knows how to do hair, have them educate you. I know my wife has on multiple occasions over the years paid professional stylists to come to the home and teach her, like hand over hand. Here's how you braid. Here's how you twist. Here's how you use this conditioner or this oil, or but you got to reach out to get that, to get that gain that knowledge.
You definitely do. And I would say, I promise you, the kids will appreciate that so much. And then just going to school, because what we don't see on the flip side is the kids are the ones who's going to school. And we all know the kids are really cruel out here. And they will say things mean and those things. And a lot of times if your kid is brought in that environment of, like loving and peace, they may not see the difference in their hair. But then when they go out in the world, they're going to see that difference. Okay.
And Ebony, do you think that's kind of compounded with, when they walk through the school doors, a lot of those kids also know they may not be with their biological family.
Yeah.
They might be in a foster adoptive home. So they already may feel different.
Yep.
So would that be compounded if their hair also isn't kind of looking right?
Absolutely. And that's why I feel like having those open conversations, not steer away from them. I even know too, culturally, a lot of times in African-American culture, it was one of those, hey, you're a kid, so you need to kind of stay in a child's place. But no, now we are learning that, no, it's okay to be more open, right? Age appropriate conversations, right? But having that conversation about your hair. I educate my clients about my hair a lot. They have a lot of questions, and I do cross cultures, they'll come and ask me, can I touch your hair? And I will let them know, hey, when you do get into other environments, they may not be okay to do, but here you can do that, and that's okay. And they are amazed and are like, okay. So it's just about just having that open, honest conversation with them. I think is just key, because again, the kids are the ones who's out here in the world. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said about them being curious and then asking.
Yeah.
Because being curious and asking permission are two really key pieces, I think. To want to learn more, but to also not assume that you have a right to touch someone's hair or assume anything. And that's, we talk about white privilege, that's kind of part of it. Let's be honest. Yeah. A lot of white people feel like they can just go up and touch African-American hair. Or other races as well. And, that's something that I think is also a piece of education.
Yeah. What I want to highlight, I think it's really good here at Boys Girl Haven that we are getting trained in the whole TRC, because I think that is so, so important nowadays. I will say previous job, I won't mention any names. I worked in an environment that I had coworkers that would literally come up and just ask so many like this kind of almost inappropriate. I want to be honest, I want to give an example. I will never forget, I was sitting at my desk and I had a coworker who said, hey, Ebony, I didn't even recognize you because, your hair changes so much. Not realizing that was kind of just a little rude.
Yeah.
And I think back in the day, let's be honest, I probably would have kind of let that slide. And now that I'm realizing, no, that was a great educational piece. And I said to her, hey, I just want to let you know that was kind of a little wrong for you to say that. And, just FYI, our hair is super important. Yeah. And yes, you will see me with a lot of different hairstyles. And I just kind of went in a cold conversation, me and her. And I think it was just awesome because she wasn't offended at all. Mm-hmm. We were two people that was able to sit down. And I promise you, from that conversation on, she said, you opened my eyes so much. And she was like, now when she saw me, she was like, your hair looks beautiful. Like her whole approach changed, and it wasn't a bad thing. And I really appreciate that. So, again, this is, someone who was in the social setting. You would think she probably would have knew that, but I don't think we had conversations like that. So I really enjoy Boys and Girls Haven, who's taking it a little farther to say, no, let us be a little bit more cultural competent. Like, let us figure out what's going on here. So I enjoy that.
Do you feel like that's an experience that a lot of African-American people having to kind of explain, kind of what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, educating white people?
It is. And, and I think about it sometimes, a lot of times we get offended by that. Our first response, because again, who has to explain just waking up every day, just being who you are, right? So we shouldn't have to explain that. But, I actually sometimes I don't mind that, because I feel like just as we all are learning out here, and sometimes it's okay to just have to educate someone. Now, I'm gonna be honest, Josh. If I educate you one time and you continue to do it,
Right.
I think that's where that privilege kind of continues on. But if I do that, like I said, in that opportunity, me and that coworker, it became fine after that.
Yeah.
And I want to highlight this. I don't think she was saying that to be mean. Right.
Yeah.
My hair does change. Right. But I think too, sometimes we just have to let people know, no, that's where privilege comes in and how to stop that. So yeah.
Well, and it just made me think about another point that I think connects to what we're talking about today. Talked about like foster and adoptive parents reaching out and being proactive, but I think that just applies across the board. It seems like there's so much onus put on African American folks to have to educate us white people, and I think that it really is time for Caucasian folks to take it upon themselves to educate and learn, to educate themselves to learn, and be proactive in that way. And that would be, I think, again, one of those suggestions if you're caring for a child of a different race is, don't wait for them to educate you, or don't wait for somebody to call you out. Like, really try to branch out and educate yourself. Be proactive and learn more, not just about hair care, but about culture. And about what that child may truly need to feel warmth, to feel accepted. Again, I think it's kind of a form of white privilege to hang back and expect everybody to just give it to you. I would suggest go out and learn and make yourself more of a culturally competent parent and citizen. So,
where do you feel like the first step is, like when adopting or fostering kids from different culture? What do you feel like the first step could be?
Well, I think it starts with education.
Okay.
Learn as much as you can. I know with me and my wife, we had both, again, being professionals in this field, we've worked with folks from lots of diverse backgrounds. And so we kind of had that. And then we really worked to educate ourselves about what children in transracial adoptive homes need. Even with that, though, I will admit that what we weren't prepared for was what that looked like at age 2, at age 5, at age 7, at age 10. And, this is a human being, in our case, 2 human beings who are growing and maturing and interacting with the world. And so no matter what we thought we knew, we still had to get better at parenting because our kids are interacting with the world. And unfortunately, you can't divorce race from our kids' experience, and in this country, race kind of colors everything. And so I think it's always being open to learning more about how kids are affected by issues of race at home, at school, in the community. But also just, so that was the first part to answer your question. But then I think ongoing, it's trying to be as attuned as possible to what your kids are going through. Don't assume that and don't assume it's okay. Just because you provide, I've seen this a lot with foster and adoptive parents. The belief is you've got a great home, a roof over your head, you get all the food and amenities that you want, and you get toys on your birthday and Christmas. We have a great home. Well, that may all be true, but that's not the only thing kids need. And it's not a guarantee of health and well-being just to provide love, nurturing, and everything that they need. I think you also have to be attuned to what these kids are going through. And be willing to accept that you don't know everything. So listen to your kids. Pay attention to the nonverbal cues, pay attention to what's going on in the world around them, and of course talk to your kids and see how they're doing. Because they may be going through some things that as a white parent you're not in tune with because you never had to deal with it. And I think also just be willing to accept the fact that being in a transracial home can be tough, and so be aware of what kids may be going through, and take time to understand that.
Oh, I thought that is awesome. It's so important. I really enjoy that. And I think just the way to just do it is just continue to have that open dialogue, that open conversation, open communication with them. I think that's where you will really, really find out what's going on. And I do want to highlight this. Not only, I want to just throw this out there, you being Caucasian is learning this as well. But I will say just me, just being an African-American female, I'm learning too. So recognizing that too. So sometimes kids may not be able to sit down and tell you what's going on because in their head, they're like, I don't know. I'm just different. Or I'm not feeling well. Like, I think sometimes I talk with kids and are like, something's off. And you're like, what is it? You want them to process and talk about it, but realizing they may not be at that point where they're able to articulate that. And it's okay. And it's not because they, are being defiant or they just not wanting to say anything. They may not know. Because we're learning as well, because we are coming back from years of time being told that our hair is not beautiful. Our hair is not, we can't wear our hair certain ways, right? Think about the army and those things. And so now we're just embracing this. And I'm not talking about 100 years. We're probably only about 10, 20 years in the game, right? Yeah. So we're still learning.
Yeah.
So embracing, just realizing that, I think it's important.
Yeah. And reinforcing that there are many standards of beauty.
Yeah.
And that, having African American hair and having African American hairstyles, or traditionally African American hairstyles, is beautiful.
Yeah.
I also think, it's representation too. Don't have a whole playroom full of white Barbie dolls.
Yeah.
I think about the new Little Mermaid movie.
Oh.
With our African American Ariel.
Yes.
And those toys are flying off the shelf. And I think that's wonderful.
Awesome.
Because our children need to see themselves as heroes, but also as beautiful. So be mindful of that, and be mindful of not reinforcing that stereotype of Eurocentric beauty.
Yeah.
Really, really try to send the message that they're beautiful just as they are.
Yeah.
And that we're going to support that.
And does it also do you think that it also takes the time for you to kind of dig that awareness within yourself and realizing like what your beauty is, and that you are beauty too, beautiful in so many different ways as well, and then to be able to help your kid? Okay.
Yeah, it's, my daughter has come to us, in the past, and has said something about wishing she had straight hair, or even saying, little Susie at school has straight hair. Why can't I have long straight hair like her?
Yeah.
And having to have that conversation about your hair is different, but your hair is just as beautiful. Or of course we say it's more beautiful. You're the most beautiful girl in the world.
Love it.
But yeah, you have to challenge that.
Yeah.
Because our kids are getting that message that their hair is not beautiful. Their hair is not okay.
Yeah.
That, and so I think we have to really, maybe even kind of more than in African American homes, like really reinforce that the way you look, you're perfect the way you are.
Yeah.
You're handsome, you're beautiful, and let's support you in enhancing that natural beauty. And part of that is respecting the traditions for hair care, and like we've seen a lot in the news about like discrimination because women wore traditionally African hairstyles, like box braids and things. And that's just examples of that Eurocentric standard of beauty. We've got to go away from that.
Yeah. And I would tell you, I think that that's really good, because in the home, I think sometimes the first thing is just acknowledging that, but then also just knowing that it's ongoing. And so creating that positive affirmations with the kids, this daily, ongoing, really getting it in their head that they are beautiful. Like you said, doing things like taking them to the movie to go see The Little Mermaid, taking them, having books in your house, having different types of different culture, music. And I would tell you, culture, like African American culture, is everywhere. So we can kind of implement it in so many different ways, but allowing the kid to see those things, because when they do go out here in the world, I will tell you, they will remember what they've learned. And so I think that that's awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Haven Happenings podcast. You can listen to more episodes or learn more by visiting us online at boysandgirlshaven.org.